Hello, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Banner and Backbones centering the discussion in America discussion today. Um, it's a little bit different from the normal Sick of This show on at this time of the day. But good morning, everyone. Welcome. I'm Nick Perro. I'm joined by my colleagues here at Banner and Backbone, Melissa Corrigan, Shane Urich, and Lawrence Winterman, as well as the two gentlemen from Centered America, Gavin and Sherrod. Welcome, both of you, to the show. Welcome, everyone. Oh, we lost Gavin for a second. Um, don't know what happened there with him. There we go. He's back. We're moving screens around. We're going to switch, keep our Centered America guys together. So, good morning, everyone. We're going to be pulling up chats as we get in. Um, Hello, welcome. Do you guys mind introducing yourselves to everyone in the audience before we get started today?
Yeah. Hey guys, I'm Gavin. I'm one of the co-directors at Centered America. I'm a student currently at Mexico State, business major with a minor in poli sci, and I'm Sherrod's partner in crime in this whole crazy nonprofit thing that we're doing.
Hi, I'm Sherrod Swaney. I'm also another co-director of Centered America. I am a student studying political science, and I'm just ready to center the discussion. So I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining us today.
Yeah, we're
Um,
glad
we
to be here.
we appreciate it. I know, Sherrod, it's our second time. Sorry if I say your name wrong. Um,
Oh, it's all right.
it's um, it's our second time talking, and so I'm glad we're getting this chance to speak again today. Um, but I also wanted to make sure that we got the whole crew together and start some discussions and ideas around literally centering the discussion in America and what that actually means. Um, and I wanted to bring on Melissa Corrigan, Shane Urich, and Lawrence Winterman because they all have some ideas. Lawrence has written our 6 constitutional amendment proposals that we are workshopping and live shopping with everybody to try and get feedback and build and grow as a community and really put into the zeitgeist. Melissa Corrigan writes the new papers, a Thomas Paine style paper, and she's just fucking incredible at it. Um, and
Uh,
distributes them in person, um, and like physical stuff. And then obviously everybody knows Shane, our firebrand and very hard hitting hard truths, and going into the tech side on a lot of stuff too. And so we wanted to get you guys in and really break down some ideas and hear what you guys are doing, and how you're helping both locally and nationally, and what Banner and Backbone can do to support y'all.
Awesome.
yeah, thank you.
So, yeah, so really just open it up for you guys right now. Anyone, please jump in on if you've got questions for the guys. But I want to give you guys really the floor a little bit to discuss what you're doing first, and then what we're doing, and maybe pass it over to Lawrence to discuss some of the constitutional amendments and pieces like that. Melissa, your new papers and how those might fit in ways that we can build a local reporting coalition to get the message out.
Yeah, awesome. Sherrod, do you want to kind of introduce what Centered America is for those watching who don't know who we are or what our
Yes.
organization is?
Yeah, so Centered America is a nonprofit political organization. We are classified under 501c4, which means that we can lobby at the state and federal level, and kind of propose bills and create legislation. But we put this organization together to defend democracy and resist authoritarianism. We're trying to bring together disillusioned Democrats and disillusioned Republicans, overlooked communities, and everyday Americans who feel like neither party is working for them and represents them. And so our goal is kind of to help reform the Democratic Party to be one that serves the people. And being centered means rejecting lies, rejecting extremism, standing firm in reality. Being centered doesn't mean, capitulating to Trump. It means putting people before power and defending the Constitution. So that's what centered America is.
Yeah, I think being centered when we picked that name was super important to us because it defined who we are to everybody looking in. And we chose centered because we believe that everything that we should be doing should be based off of uh, principle, right? And fairness, and not necessarily party, right, left or right. And really centering the conversation back to the people, we the people, and allowing those, like Sherrod have said, the communities who have been overlooked and those who are disillusioned, to present them with a voice again in politics, and allow their voices and their opinions to be heard, just as much as ours are.
So right now we're focusing a lot on social advocacy. And what that means for us right now is doing a lot of independent journalism, a lot of different styles of reporting, as well as creating resources for people to fight back. We are also protecting people with our resources. So, for example, we have created a social security crisis plan. We have created protest plans for people to keep them safe during protests. We have created a whole level of resources for people to use to fight back. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah.
Um,
Sorry.
and
Sorry.
no, before you go on, you said something interesting right there because we've got protests coming up in for No Kings uh, on the 18th of October. Um, what from what resources that you said you had protest material and protest resources? Can you talk a little bit about that and how people could prepare for upcoming protests, or how they could get more involved just in general for protesting and organizing them?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna give it off to Gavin as well. Protesting right now, we are in a very scary period of time. What just happened, what continues to happen with gun violence, is honestly something that we have to look out for when we're doing mass protests like the one on the 18th. So we have to be vigilant, and that doesn't mean that we shouldn't show up because it's so important to get away from the fear and actually keep that power in our hands. Um, but protesting, I just flew to New Mexico, and the first thing that we decided to do on the last No Kings Day was set up a table and talk about what we're doing and how we want to speak to the people and combine our ideas to actually form action. So we set up a table on No Kings Day, me and Gavin, and we were just passing out infographics and we were talking to people. We handed out water, we handed out snacks, and we created a community, and it was great. Gavin, what did you think about that?
Yeah, the last No King's Day protest that we attended was here in Cruces, and it was a great success. I mean, it was an amazing protest that we held here, and we, like what Sherrod said, we set up a tent, and our main emphasis there was just connecting with the community, and that was through what we believed to support that protest by handing out, water, free snacks, and as well setting up a table there for people to come to us and talk to us about what centered America is. We were handing out flyers that we have about centered America to people, and just allowing them to read on the material that we have, and showing them the website, and showing them how you can get in contact with us, what we're doing in the community, what we're doing with students, and what we're going to be doing in the future. And just building that community, not only online, right, but in person, is super important for fostering this growth moving forward. And, the next No King's Day protest, I'm looking at going up there to St. Louis, and attending a protest over there with Sherrod, and doing the exact same thing, right? Supporting the community, supporting these protesters, along with being there protesting ourselves, right? Because that's super important.
This is amazing, guys. I love the materials that you're showing. I honestly, I think there's something to be said for having nicely produced materials to really kind of give your organization that pro look.
Yeah.
You know, so really well done. I'm super impressed with what you're doing. Is there, out of curiosity, is there a reason you're picking St. Louis, or like, is that where one of you lives, or?
Yeah, so we're actually incorporated in the state of Missouri. We're a nationwide organization, but I live in Missouri, and because it's a big city and we have, a lot of access to, donors and different stuff here in St. Louis, and protests are huge here in St. Louis. We decided to incorporate here instead of in New Mexico. And so yeah, that's why Gavin would come up to St. Louis, and I came down to Cruces to have kind
Nice.
of like a bigger community.
Yeah, and I think that's what allows us to be so successful with Centered America is we have two directors in completely different parts of the country, right? Sherrod and where our organization is incorporated, Missouri is a very red state, and it's very rural as well as you have major cities like St. Louis, and right not too far down the road is Kansas City. So, we have that kind of diverse community over there. And then I'm in New Mexico, right down by the border. I'm in a very blue state, a very Latino state, Hispanic state. And because of that, I see a very different side of this country. I interact with different people of the community, and I have different conversations and different experiences. And I'm able to bring that back to Centered America and our organization and allow that to help us build this organization to better succeed with different types of communities and different individuals.
And that's what we were trying to combine our ways of life. I've moved around a lot. Gavin has kind of stayed in New Mexico, but we both come from very different backgrounds. I come from an artistic kind of like music background. I'm a musician, and Gavin comes from kind of like this artistic blue collar background and business background. And so combining those ways of life has really helped shape this kind of bipartisan view of how we can create a centered conversation.
I have a question for you guys. Um, and obviously, like the mission behind Centered America, the reason I've been following Centered America for so long is that what you're offering is really what I firmly believe is the way forward. But obviously, it's easier said than done, right? Because you're offering a central message. But what is your strategy, in terms of reaching these other people? Because what I've found is that if you want to reach the disillusioned MAGA, you almost have to kind of play into some of the I'm gonna say the word conspiracy because it kind of is, but also like we're living through a giant conspiracy, so it gets muddled because it's like we don't want to use the word conspiracy, but like what else do you call like a coup by like fascist oligarchs that is trying to undermine your government? Like I
Mhm.
kind of think that is like the definition of an actual conspiracy, but like I think in my experience, it's like you also kind of have to offer them like a cookie to say like the least. Like you have to give them something to like make them want to come and hear the other things you're saying. So what's your strategy? Because you are approaching from a very neutral position, but these people themselves are generally speaking, they're not neutral. Like they are opposed, like they've been conditioned to view a neutral factual position as manipulative.
Yeah, so I'll start off, and then Gavin can kind of finish me off as well. I believe that trying to reach MAGA is a very hard goal to reach. So it's a great question. Um, because right now our strategy is really focusing on Republicans that are disillusioned with the Republican Party. It is really hard to reach MAGA and have a conversation when that truth is not actually cemented in any truth. Um, and so our strategy actually started out with algorithmic social media platforms, right? How can we create social advocacy and reach people through the algorithm when the algorithm is really tethered to the person and what they're watching? Also, face-to-face, like grassroots messaging. So we went to Principles First Summit, which was a majority Republican summit. This was back in February, and it was our first introduction to actually speaking across the aisle with Republican voters, and they were very supportive of our cause. So meeting people face to face, grassroots messaging is something that is very effective. But when it comes to MAGA voters, I don't think that that is our main mission. I think our main mission is getting disillusioned Republican voters on our side and feeling like the Democrat, because we vote Democrat, the Democrats are who they can vote for. Of course, we are apart from the Democratic establishment, but we very much vote Democrat because they are more in line with those centered ideals right now.
Yeah, what Sherrod said basically is what I'm about to reiterate, right? One of the things that I wanted to talk about was the Principle First Summit that we attended in Washington, D.C. in February. It was an amazing event, and that was our first time interacting across the aisle, right? And we did that because we didn't want to section ourselves off to just one side, right? One party or the other. And when I mention party, I really mean Democrats and then the Republicans that aren't MAGA, right? Republicans that either didn't vote in this last election or voted for Harris. And that was the majority of who made up this summit. And in doing so, we learned a lot of valuable knowledge and ways that these voters think. What are the topics that they're really focusing on? And what are the topics that they don't really care about? And I think the best way to either talk to or approach a conversation with somebody like MAGA or Republican is not necessarily trying to push your views, right? Push them in one direction or the other. It's giving them the information that they need to come to a conclusion on their own. And I think that what we've done so far through social media and through all of our online projects is just allowing that information to be out there and centralizing it in one place for people to access. And Sherrod has done a really good job at doing that. He does up-to-date news reporting on everything that's happening, in the nation and both locally. There is a ton of people in our community because they care about not only the issues, but the people within Centered America, our Centered Americans. And we have so many peer reporting that, allows this organization to not just be, hey, come to our side, come vote for us, come do this. It's more about, hey, this is the information we have. And if you want to have a conversation about this, if you are serious about, like almost repenting for what you've done in a sense, come talk to us. And we've had tons of conversations with Disillusioned MAGA, but it's really about fostering a space for them to feel comfortable to us, coming to us, really. And if you continue to, foster that community and allow this to be a space where people feel comfortable coming to you and talking about, what they've done or, how they felt and how they've allowed their political beliefs to foster in real life, we can then allow that to continue through Centered America.
And one last thing to bounce off of that, we have to let the truth speak for itself, like Gavin was saying, but also we have to treat MAGA and that extremist ideology as an addiction. A little personal thing. My mother's a psychiatric nurse practitioner, and I've dealt with a lot of addiction aspects in a lot of my family life. A lot of my family are addicts. I'm safe, but like we have to treat that ideology as an addiction, and we have to keep boundaries as well. So centering the conversation doesn't mean, okay, we need to get MAGA on our side. It has to be that we have to let truth speak for itself. We, at the Principles First Summit, spoke to this man called Rich Logis. I don't know if any of you know him. He is the founder of an organization called Leaving MAGA. And he spoke at this summit about how he left MAGA, how he left that ideology. And it was the fact that he let the truth speak for itself. After Uvalde shooting, after January 6th, he really took an internal look inside of his own life and his ideology, and he was seeing that he was putting Trump before his family. And so centering on that topic, that idea of it can't be us making sure that they don't relapse if we look at it as an addiction, right? It's not us making sure that they don't, do their drug. It's us making sure that they can realize that that drug is killing them and ruining their life. And that's a hard thing to do, but if we let it speak for itself and they end up, feeling that the tariffs, if they end up feeling how it feels like farmers are feeling the fact that tariffs are ruining their farms, businesses and small businesses are feeling the effect of how tariffs are ruining their business. And if we let that speak for itself, then we are more, we have the ability to keep them in the conversation, and they have the ability to actually come back in some way. Now, that doesn't mean that they shouldn't have retribution for what they've caused, for the violence as well.
I really appreciate everything you guys just said, because I think that you're exactly where you should be. I think that I totally agree with you in regards to creating a space where people who are disillusioned can come without retribution, because I think like they're going to feel, like you said just now, like they're going to feel the pain of their own actions. And the other thing you said that I think is so important, one of the most important things you've said thus far, and you've said really important things, is treating MAGA as an addiction, right? Because Trump is a cult of personality, and there is absolute psychological repercussions for the actions that have been taken by the regime, how they have used social media and leveraged it to create these echo chambers that have literally, when we go back and study this, because we will have to go back and study this, we're going to find that these people's brain chemistry was in some way changed, because we don't understand how social media works. We still don't. We haven't studied it enough to understand like the effects on us, as we are like the beta test for whatever the hell, a globally connected, algorithmically influenced society is. And I think that what we're seeing is, the absolute exploitation and unregulated usage of social media and what it can do to people. So, and giving them a space to come, giving them a space to come somewhere unjudged and recover is really important, because me and Nick talk about this a lot, but we need everybody to beat this. It needs to be a populist movement, and a populist movement, we cannot choose to be exclusive in who we decide to let work with us. So I think you guys are on the right path.
Yeah, and I think it's not just because I agree, but I also think that it's not just the MAGA extremist movement that's using social media. It's also a lot of these left wing echo chambers as well. I think me and Nick talked about this a little bit, and it's of course we don't want to dwell on the past and we want to look forward. But I think that it can help us look forward if we know how we have lost in the past. And I think one of the main things, among a lot of different things that landed us here in the first place, is social media. Like you were saying, Shane. And it's the fact that instead of looking towards getting people on our side and getting people in the conversation, we used a lot of funding in the past election cycle on social media algorithms and social media messaging, when algorithms are very centered to echo chambers, and the people that are voting for Kamala Harris are going to see Kamala Harris's videos, and people that are voting for Donald Trump are going to see Donald Trump's videos. It's just how it works in terms of social media. What we can do is what honestly worked for Turning Point USA. which is, and we can do it in a centered way. We don't have to do it in the way that they do it, which is getting on the ground on college campuses, speaking across the aisle, and then using both voices to have it on both algorithms, right? You can see it across the aisle if both people are talking. And so
Right.
that's
I actually had a question for you guys. I have older kids, young adult kids that are college age, and we live in Norfolk, Virginia, and there's a couple of major universities here. And yet, my kids who are pretty active in politics and speaking to their friends in the community about it are really frustrated that there's such a lack of involvement from young people, particularly college age kids in this region when there are protest rallies, marches.
Yeah.
It's easy to say that the average age of someone there is 45, if not older. And my oldest son especially is about to turn 21, and he's just so incredibly frustrated that the people in his generation just don't seem to want to even engage the conversation, much less pick a side. Um, and what has been really concerning since the death of Charlie Kirk is seeing how influential Turning Point was and how many I was of the deluded impression that young equals progressive for the most part, generally. So seeing the absolute volume of college kids that have turned towards Turning Point and have accepted a very aggressively conservative position. What are you guys encountering on campuses, and how are you able to engage kids to come out and participate in political activities?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that it's a there's a lot of answers to that. But one thing that I would like to address as a college student myself is, I see the disillusion between college students and the political system right now. And I think a lot of that is because the narrative that's being pushed, where it's focused more on social problems and there's less of an emphasis on financial problems, right? Like there's almost no um, message or any explanation for what's going on right now with the economy. There's none of that in the news. There's very sparse coverage of any of that, and I think the college students see, at least the people that I interact with, they see politics as just a one-sided dice. Really, it's almost as if they cannot separate the social issues from the financial issues. And when you do that, what the Republican Party has been really good at doing for the last 10 years is only focusing political messaging on social issues, like LGBTQ rights and, most importantly, right, immigration. And they see no correlation between, financial problems with the economy and social issues that are being constantly uh, pushed at them by many different angles and directions. So I think that what we're doing right now to bring in more young adults into the conversation, into the political sphere, and to Senate America itself, is showing that everything that you care about right now is all connected to politics, right? You want to get a job after college? That's politics. You
Yeah.
want to be able to save for your future and buy a house? That's politics, right? And it's bringing all of the issues into a centralized place, that we can then show, hey, look, I know you may not care about so and so and this issue specifically, but look, right? This is what tariffs are actively doing to the economy, and this is why you might not be able to get a job after you graduate. And when you tell them that, when you talk about that, they immediately look up at you and they're like, wait a second. You know what I mean? And there's this realization that, politics isn't just the social problems in society, but it's also the economical problems that we see. And it's about connecting what college students and what younger adults care about, which is really money and being able to succeed on their own without their parents' help after college, and using that and connecting that to the greater political sphere, right, of influence that, you know, maybe they don't see or they haven't cared about. And the one thing that I would also like to add is so many people that I meet, so many people that I talk to, and friends and peers that I have, there is so much politics just everywhere now, and rightfully so. I mean, it is the epicenter of what this country is. But because of that, there is so much information that most people just feel burnt out with the idea of politics, and being separated from it entirely and not picking a side is easier than attempting to, you know, push through most of the trash that's online and actually finding and caring about information that is useful and has any meaningful impact. So, what we found most successful with the younger demographic like ourselves is just connecting issues that they care about, as well as allowing them to see that politics doesn't have to just be screaming matches on TikTok, right?
And Melissa, I think there's also there's a lack of representation in our government for younger people, and that keeps them disillusioned. We see that the average age is above 40. So how are college kids able to feel connected to politics if there's a lack of representation? So what we need to do is we need to run younger candidates so that college-aged kids feel more in line and represented with our government and our Congress. Like, if we want to have an actual, you know, centered representation in government with our, you know, House of Representatives and Senate and our Congress, we need to run younger candidates and keep that range of age and ideas strong, because our economic issues as younger people are completely different from the economic issues that older people face, because older people had better incentives and had an easier time getting, you know, a footing economically, and we don't. So having people represent us in that idea is very important, and that might make, you know, college aged kids a little bit more in line with what's happening politically. But I also think it comes down to social media as well.
I wanted to offer something because I one of the things I think is really important is case studies. And I talk about this a lot. Is it's one thing to talk about an issue like young people in the economy. It's another entirely to get a real case study on it. One of my passions is geopolitics. So um, I spent when I went to Argentina, it's very interesting because if you look at Argentina's economy, they've been in the hole for decades. And one of the big issues there is their housing and how young people have been unable to afford housing for a long time. This goes to talk about what you're saying, college age kids, all they really care about money. Well, what they noticed as inflation got worse and everything is that young people, they get their paycheck, they go out, they spend everything, and they live week to week, and they have no savings because the idea at that point, when the economy doesn't work and people are so disillusioned with the current situation, is they just spend all their money on social events and consumer things like everyone's wearing Jordans and everyone's wearing expensive clothes and everyone is doing all these things because there is no hope in terms of them getting a house or renting or having any actual ownership of things. And I think that in America, we see a very similar thing. We're like looking at the economy getting worse, and yet consumer spending is still high. Why? Like high relatively. Why? Because college age kids, young people have been groomed into this cycle. And again, I think that's something that ties to our economy. Is like, well, that's a good indicator of where we are. Is young people continue to spend because we don't save, because there's no point in saving for a house. It's not something that's tangible. So, like, being able to realign that discussion and also just pointing to a real case study and maybe why young people are acting that way,
Yeah.
and to give them a possibility of a future and be like, yeah, that is politics. Like, you don't have to spend all your money on these social trends and keep this consumerism going, because if you engage with centered America and centered beliefs, well, you might actually be able to do something else. And I just wanted to share that case study because I think that's
Yeah.
helpful for people as well.
Shane, you hit the nail on the head with that one. I really think that that's exactly what we're seeing as well. And I can add on to that with, I think there's also a lack of financial education that older individuals got, rather than college age individuals. I think, there's tons of lack of, sexual education and financial education, and I think that we need to educate our college age individuals and make sure that people have the resources they need to be able to save money and not feel like it's hopeless. But if we don't have hope with with the housing crisis, right? We don't have real policy trying to engage on what is making, housing so expensive, then college age individuals do feel hopeless and they're going to spend their money on things that they can actually tangibly afford. So yeah, I think that's a great message, and I think we're gonna start working on that. That's great. Thank you, Shane.
Yeah, I really like what you said about Argentina because we definitely are seeing that here in America for sure, right? Consumerism has completely reshifted to because of online shopping and the very easily accessible world of online shopping. It's become so easy to become like overconsumed and look at the economy and what Jared was saying. It's so disillusioning to look at something that is obviously failing and say, yeah, you know what, I'm just going to continue to work and put this money aside for something that I don't even know if it's going to be possible when I need to be at that point, right? 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, when I've saved enough, is the economy even going to be stable, or is less stable or more stable than it is now? And it's hard to make these decisions, especially now with the administration just completely censoring the statistics in this country, right? With him firing the head of the Labor Bureau of Statistics and replacing him with somebody that he appointed. It's stuff like that where it's hard to now make decisions looking into the future financially if we can't even get the correct information to base that off of. And you see the rise of online shopping and quick satisfaction, and people are resorting to just saying, hey, I know I'll never be able to afford a house, but I can buy this cool pair of shoes online and I can be happy for the month, right? And I see that with the people that I work with, and I see that with the people that I go to school with. These people have brand new clothes, jewelry, a nice laptop, a brand new iPhone 17, but they don't have any money put aside for savings, right?
Yeah.
And they're continuing to pay their college tuition paycheck after paycheck. So there's almost a shift in the economic stability of younger adults and not focusing on saving and being successful and happy later on in life, and instead being as happy as I can now through any means possible, because I don't know if there's happiness in the future.
And going back to what you're saying, Melissa, I think that if they see that younger people are getting engaged, they're going to feel more represented. So our organization
Right.
is me and Gavin. We are younger college age individuals. Even if they don't have representation in government, if they have representation on the ground, that does something at least. That does help them feel more engaged. And I think economically, what Gavin was saying, how are people going to feel like they trust a system that is not working? How are people
Right.
going to go, I so love this system that's not working for me? And so that's why we have to change the system. Yeah.
I'd like to add just real quick, representation, because that's super important. And I love that Sharon brought that up because it's so true. There is almost no representation of young adults in politics, and that's a serious issue because of there's almost no incentive, and there's no reason to follow politics if you see the people that are in politics and they're like 80 or 90 years old and they're voting and continuing to vote for their interests.
Right.
And it becomes super frustrating very fast. And I think one thing that I'd like to address is how successful Charlie Kirk was in uh, you know, fostering really so many copycats of himself, because he was
Right.
a younger individual. I mean, he started his political career in high school, and he has been in that spotlight as a young adult for his entire 20s. And because of that, so many young men on the right said, "Hey, I could do that too." Right.
Yeah.
And those are the people that we're seeing following his passing, come up from the ground and are trying to imitate what he was doing, right? Going around and trying to start conversations or instigate people.
Right.
And if we do that, but on the left, like what Sherrod and I are trying to do, is say, hey, look, you can be a part of politics. It's not like going to school for 4 years and then 3 years in law school and then maybe you can run. And it's like, no, that's not really what politics is. You can have a voice, you can matter without being an elected official, right? You can make change, you can do amazing things in politics without being an elected official.
And
I
without
think
having to pay any money.
Yeah,
with
there's no barrier of entry. And I think that's where people, especially younger individuals, get so caught up on. It's like, oh, well, how do I even start? It's like, just do it, post a TikTok of yourself talking about stuff that you care about. That's what we did, right? And that's amassed
phenomenal.
10,000 followers in the last 6 months, right? So
Right.
it's just about trying something. It's about throwing something and seeing what sticks. And, there's so many people that I've met. My girlfriend, she's a part of a sorority, and a lot of the girls in her sorority are super liberal. And she talks about what I do with Senator America, and they're like, wow, that's amazing. Like, how did he do that? And when I talk to them, it's like, hey, like it's as simple as just starting, and not being afraid to allow your voice to be heard, and not being afraid to be wrong sometimes. It's
Right.
so scary right now for young people to even attempt to have a voice at all in general in society, but it's even harder in politics because it's so the system is just so old that it feels as if there's no way to even get your foot in the door. And what we're doing, what Sheridan and I are actively doing with Senator America, is saying, hey, like, this is how easy it is. This is what we're doing. It's not a super complicated barrier of entry. In fact, I would say there's almost none.
Right.
Just care enough to do
I
something.
think,
And that's all
Nick,
that politics is.
this dovetails nicely with we're launching a project, the 1A Collective, that
Yep.
is specifically to empower absolutely everyone to exercise their First Amendment rights. So that's phenomenal. So I have a sticky question to ask you.
Go crazy.
Because I have found that when an organization is branded center-centric moderate, there can be a bit of concern from certain people. So I have a young adult son who is trans, and I will never ever be willing to throw trans rights under the bus for political advantage. And unfortunately, what I have found is that the right has co-opted this issue to such a degree that when the topic of trans rights enters the conversation, that conversation frequently shuts down. It just goes no further. They take a hard stance, and there simply isn't any, I cannot move forward with a politician who's willing to give trans people rights. So have you guys encountered this in your conversations, and how do you handle that when it comes up?
That is a sticky question. Our number one thing is that we advocate for trans rights. We advocate for LGBTQ plus rights. Um,
And we don't
and
apologize for that. I'd like to
yeah,
add that just like that is a non-starter for us, right? Like we will not apologize for protecting any community that's been victimized by this organization or by this administration.
and so being centered, yes, that name comes with a lot of, well, how are you need to be centered on LGBTQ rights. No, we don't. No, we don't, because social issues, even okay, so a lot of people do care about the economy, but social issues matter as well. And so before we were talking about how a lot of people care about the economy, but social issues matter to us a lot. And I think Donald Trump curated this propaganda machine to see LGBTQ individuals as not people, especially with what's going on with Charlie Kirk and them just trying to identify this shooter as left wing or keep it under this bracket. um, I think that yes, our number one goal is to, make sure that people are heard, especially LGBTQ individuals. Um, but I think when we're having a conversation, we explain that being centered does not mean capitulating. And the First Amendment rights and freedom of the people matters more than this idea that you're pushing on somebody. We and Gavin, you can add on to that. Um, but I think asking the question of, do you support Trump and his idea, or the Constitution and how we should have the freedom to choose our partners and who we identify as? And I think getting that answer, the majority of people that aren't extremists will say that they support the Constitution, and then you can frame the argument that people should have the ability to identify themselves as whatever the fuck they choose. Yeah.
I want to bust in here really quick because I want to shout out Frederick Pogue, who said something to me, and he's part of the Banner and Backbone team as well. But this stuck with me more than anything else, and it was during our 24-hour live stream event for the launch of Banner and Backbone. It's 2 a.m. We're both delirious, and we're talking about all this stuff. We ended up getting on the topic. He said, when people say that kind of stuff to me about trans people, I say, are trans people people? And they go, well, yeah. And he goes, do people deserve respect? And they'll go, yeah. Do people deserve rights? They'll go, yeah. Okay, so we agree. Boom.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's crazy. It's so good. It's so good.
And keeping that part of the conversation is big for us, right? You go, we're people. We all have a place in this government, and it's enshrined in a constitution. How are you going to say that they deserve any less respect? So Shane, I appreciate that. Gavin?
Yeah. What Shared was mentioning is this, huge propaganda that the Trump administration has been so successful at provoking within their audience. And that's, really dehumanizing the political targets that they use to further their agenda, whether that's LGBTQ or marginalized communities like immigrants, right? So it's, again, right, what Shane was saying, it's all comes down to, do you feel that other humans deserve respect, right? And if that's yes, then we agree, right? I feel that everybody has the right to freedom of expression and freedom of speech and freedom of religion. And I believe that everybody inherently deserves respect. And, that goes for everybody. And if the whole thought process and the narrative coming from this administration is dehumanizing these people, then what we are doing is rehumanizing them and showing them that these people are people and they matter, and they're not a target for political narratives, right? Like, this isn't a left or right issue. This is a human issue. This is about human respect and human decency, and making sure that people understand that these people do deserve respect, decency, and compassion.
And I think it's hard to see that the majority supports that. But from the way we've spoken across the aisle to Republicans that are disillusioned with the Republican Party, even people with conservative ideals still support that idea and are still in line. Now, there is an extremist that's so loud that extremist ideology is very loud, but that doesn't mean that the majority doesn't feel that way and feel like people deserve respect, especially trans individuals. And we're seeing that even though the algorithm is pushing this idea that MAGA extremists are the main thing right now, it's not, right? We have a majority that supports trans rights in America. That is the truth. And
Yeah.
if we get that majority into the conversation, we can make it louder than extremist ideology. And hate is always going to be loud. We know that. We know that hate is going to appear louder than love and kindness and respect. But we can make ourselves loud by having these conversations and doing what we're doing right now. And I think it does do work. And so I appreciate you, Melissa. Thank you for sharing that and asking that question, because we do very much care, and we are seeing that other people care too.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, and I love that discussion. Thank you guys for being unapologetically pro personhood
Yeah,
and
like-
dignity. It means a lot. And I think that's something, Lawrence, you have talked about too, in terms of representation and how we can represent people better. I know we've only got a couple minutes left in this discussion. I have another live that I've got to get to right after this. But I would love to continue this talk next week if people are available.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
continue having more of these discussions. Evan Fields is most likely going to be able to join us next week. He's part of the Lincoln Square project. He also does. He wrote a master's thesis on local engagement and like the utility and um, importance of local civic actions like town halls and your and how you get engaged going from a bottom up strategy. So I'd love to get him involved in this discussion too. Lawrence hasn't had a lot of time to discuss his constitutional amendments, which I really want to get to too. So I think this could be almost a long running series of us getting together and talking about this.
Totally.
Yeah, I'd love that. That'd be amazing.
So if y'all don't mind, I'd love to keep this discussion going next week. And before that way we don't get into too many more conversations right now. Get us a moment because I got to take a minute. I'll be with Dean Blundell right after this, so please tune in on my live. Is remind everyone where they can find you guys, what your names are, what you're doing, and how we can support you. Unabashedly promote yourselves.
Yeah. So first off, before we start promoting, I can't wait to have that conversation. That's going to be a great conversation, and I'm so happy to hear about the constitutional amendments. And I can't wait to continue next week. So my name is Sherrod Swaney. I'm the co-director of Centered America. You can find all of our platforms. We have Substack, Centered America. You can look up our website, centeredamerica.org. We're on TikTok, Centered America. Everything is Centered America. We keep we have a Blue Sky. We have an X. All of our social medias are Centered America. You should be able to find us just by typing that in. We have pretty good search engine optimization, so just typing it on your search bar, it'll come up. Gavin?
Yeah. There's so much useful information on our website, www.centeredamerica.org, not .com, .org. You'll find so much more about both Sherrod and I, the organization, and links to our articles on Substack, and also just explaining what our plans are for the future.
And just a little bit about us and our background. Me and Gavin met in elementary school.
Yeah.
I had moved to New Mexico, and we met each other in third grade, and we weren't talking about the everyday just normal play on the playground stuff. We were talking about politics, which was crazy for third graders to talk about. But we were talking about the effects of 9/11 and how that has impacted people and individuals and first responders, and we kind of just became best friends, and I had moved away, and then we reconnected and decided we need to do something. And so we started Centered America to really center the conversation and go back to our roots, which is we've always cared about politics and we've always cared about people.
It was fantastic, guys. Thank you for joining us. Melissa, Shane, Lawrence, thank you guys for joining me today on this as well. This has been a presentation of Banner and Backbone, having a discussion on centering America and centering our discussions on real center issues. So please tune in again next week. We'll be continuing this discussion and look forward to seeing everyone. Thanks, y'all, and have a great afternoon.
We'll see you. Thank you.